Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you're checking out our podcast on all of our social media platforms where you can listen to podcasts, and also check us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find not only the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but also the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where I talk to other girl dads like myself and sometimes daughters about the daddy-daughter relationship in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughters. So you can find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast that you're currently listening to, and several other podcasts that is also available on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. So make sure you guys go and check that out. And while you're there, while you're checking that out, also check out our ebooks. Right now, I am giving away my ebook, The Forgiving Me, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness, absolutely free. So if you go to ebooksbyejames.com, you can get your copy of Forgiving Me, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness, absolutely free. And while you're there, check out our other ebooks that we have available, including the Core 4, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father, as well as the From Males to Men, which is a male mentoring ebook for young men, that's teenagers that's crossing over into adulthood. So again, if you go to ebooksbyejames.com, you can get your free copy of Forgiving Me, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness, absolutely free. And while you're there, grab one of the other ebooks that we have available. All right, do me that favor. So thank you guys again, once again, for tuning in. And today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Tammy Vincent. How are you doing?
I am doing great, Ernest. How are you?
I am doing great as well. Thank you so much for being on, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. And so we're going to jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and let us know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, well, my name is Tammy Vincent, and thank you for coming and checking in. So, I am a podcast host, and I'm also an author. I wrote a book. I'm a NLP practitioner and a trauma informed certified life coach. And what I do is I help people get from being stuck and having
Mhm.
grown up with a bunch of junk that they just never really dealt with. And now it's followed them into adulthood, and they're kind of a little lost, kind of a little confused, and things just aren't the way they are or they should be or can be. So
Yeah.
I help them find their purpose and figure out how to unravel some of the past so that they can go forward in a better future.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And of course, here, like I said, we're here to help people, fulfill that purpose that they've been given. Also, so I'm glad that we're connected. So let's go back. Let's go back a little bit in your background because I always say those of us who live our lives to help others and in service of others, generally came from some incident in our past that maybe we could have used some help or some service, and that's how we kind of cross over into the work that we do. So in your background, take us a little bit back in the early version of who Tammy was, and what was those things that happened in your life that made you like, okay, now I'm going to spend my life helping those who may have some of the traumas that I've witnessed of my own.
Okay, well, both my parents were alcoholics. My father was more of what people consider a functioning alcoholic. So he got up every
Mhm.
day for work. He wasn't mean, he wasn't abusive, but he drank a lot.
Mhm.
And my mother was on the other spectrum. She was the non-functioning alcoholic, the one that was abusive, was mean, always told us every day that she wished we had never been born, all of those
Mhm.
things that no child should ever have to listen to or hear. And while I don't have hard feelings on either side, and everybody, people say, well, your dad never did anything wrong. And unfortunately for our situation, he was never emotionally available to really do anything
Mhm.
right, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and we were talking about it before we came on the show. Both of my parents were fighting their own demons, and I get that now. And while I have no animosity, no hard feelings, and anything else, it still didn't change what was done. So I
Mhm.
still had a lot of growing, a lot of personal growth, a lot of major concepts. I know a lot of people say there's that aha moment in your life where you go, oh, things weren't really normal. And
Mhm.
mine, unfortunately, didn't come until I was 26 when I was getting ready to have my first child. And I realized that I had no idea on this earth what unconditional love felt like. And I was getting ready to have a baby. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am 100% responsible for another life, and I
Yeah.
don't know how to do that. So that is when my healing journey began. And I dove into everything and realized how many of the fundamental concepts I was really missing: unconditional love, boundaries, relationships, a parenting style. Like I had none of that. I had
Mhm.
zero foundation for any of that because what I thought was normal and all I knew was I'm just not going to do what they did. But
Right.
that's not the answer either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so through my 30 years, I really gained a lot of knowledge. I threw myself into every modality of healing I could possibly do and realize now, now I coach because I have a coaching certificate. I have an NLP practitioner license. I have lived experience with adult children
Mhm.
of alcoholics. So I can look at it from both sides. I'm not going to say I never picked up the bottle because that would be dishonest.
Yeah.
So I've seen the struggle from both sides. I have empathy and compassion for both sides. And so in that I feel like I can really guide people to better relationships and better just happiness overall because I do have the compassion from both sides of the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to go back to two things that you said, right? Because I definitely connect with you, because my dad struggled with alcoholism, for many years in my childhood, and like you mentioned, now as an adult looking back, I definitely can understand, why he was drinking at that time, and of course I was younger then, so I didn't understand it as a child, but just looking back on some of the things that he was dealing with as being, losing his job and losing the status that we once held of, middle class lifestyle to, literally losing everything, and your whole family, and there's 9 of us, right? So my mom and dad and 9 kids,
Whoa.
staying in one bedroom in your mom's house now, you know what I mean, because you lost everything. And then also losing my uncle, who was my mother's brother, but him and my dad were best friends like their entire life. My parents literally lived across the street from each other growing up.
Oh, wow.
So my dad and my uncle was best friends, and of course my mom, being my uncle's little sister, she was around, and so so they fell in love at a young age, and they didn't get married till they were older. But losing my uncle, and not just losing him, but him being murdered, was hard for my dad too. And so a lot of things, looking back now as an adult, that I can look back and say I definitely understand his struggles at that time. And same as you, being able to look back on your parents and say, well, yeah, I understand some of the things that they were dealing with. But it didn't necessarily make it easier at that time. You know what I mean? As adults, we look back, it's like, oh, okay, I understand, but it didn't necessarily make it easier. But another thing that you mentioned about yourself, and saying that you're not going to say that you didn't pick up the bottle, because there were times that you did. And I resonate with that as well, because with my dad struggling, one of the things with me was like, okay, I don't even want to touch it. Now I did at some point drink a little, and then I was just like, no, this is not me. But it's crazy when you hear the stories, like the 2 kids that raised in the same household, same parents, same everything, and choose different paths. That was like me and my brother. My brother is 1 year younger than me, and we like totally opposites. And he was the one that kind of went toward the drinking. I was away from it, and he kind of moved toward it, and then had his own struggles. He was functioning, right? Like you said, functioning alcoholic. He was, and he's much better now, but he was a functioning alcoholic. Like, he could get up and go to work, but he was drinking every night, And so those things I definitely resonated with me, just coming up. So just thinking of that, and how did that affect you once you became an adult? Because I know you mentioned about not having all the tools that you needed, because you didn't necessarily have the foundation. But how did that affect you personally? And even when you started to face some of your own trials and tribulations, did you fall back on that at some time, like, what, let me grab the bottle to kind of console yourself? Or were you just like, nope, I'm go cold turkey and I'll just figure this thing out?
No, well, honestly, it's the drinking, the actual alcohol really wasn't even. I know this sounds the weirdest thing for someone to say, but the alcohol is not, that's just the device that you use.
Hmm.
It's the addiction part that is the traumatic part. And that's the,
Right.
so even if I had said, okay, I'm never drinking because my parents didn't drink, you still feel this void. You're still trying to feel something that you're missing, something you never got, something that hurts. And what do people do when they hurt? They numb the pain.
Hmm.
So it just, alcohol is just a way of doing it. So even like, it wasn't even about that, because if I decided like, hey, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol cold turkey, I would have just thrown myself into something else. Because
Hmm.
regardless, it's like you need that dopamine to make you happy for
Right.
just a moment. So whether you get it from alcohol, you get it from gambling, you get it from sex, you get it from whatever it is, you're going to get it. So it's
Hmm.
really, like I never really looked at that. Like I will have a drink every once in a while. My husband and I have one beer or something. That was not, it wasn't those issues really.
Hmm.
I mean, those are generational cyclical things that are going
Yeah.
to happen over and over again. But I knew that those main concepts of like not knowing how to parent, not being loved, those things, those I had to get to the root of that. So like I went to therapy, and talk therapy, nothing against it. I love it. But I just felt like, okay, I'm going in and I'm talking about everything that's happening right now in the moment. And that's not what I'm like. Those are just little things. Those things can be changed at any moment. I'm like, I
Hmm.
need to dig deep, and I need to figure out, just how like relationships worked and stuff. I remember I was married the first time, and I remember my husband, he wasn't being mean. He was just kind of condescending in the way he was talking to me. And I just didn't think anything of it. And I remember my friend saying, When so you love someone, you don't talk to them that way. And I was like, really? I was like, I've been talked to that way my whole life. I never
Yeah.
questioned it. I never thought I could stand up for myself. I just did it. But literally, honestly, by the time I was 18, and some people, there's various degrees of how things affect people and everything else.
Mhm.
By the time I was 18, or the first time I tried therapy, and I remember her saying to me, how do you feel? Like, how did you feel when that happened? And it was something that had happened that probably would have upset the normal person. And I remember looking at her and going, what do you mean feel? Like, I was completely a numb shell from about 18 to 22.
Mm.
So I literally was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I can remember people, him saying to me, or my next therapist saying, he said, well, who are you? I said, depends on what you need me to be. Like, I can be whatever you need
Yeah.
me to be. I can be happy. I can be mad. I can be sad. I can be super professional. I can be a floozy. Like, you tell me what you need me to be right now to fit in, to feel like part of something, and I'll do
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. So what became your, because I'm listening and definitely understanding that, like myself, okay, we didn't turn to the drinking, we didn't turn to, other vices, but what became that thing that began to help you, begin to heal as as you started your journey, and even some of the, maybe some of the things that you teach now with the clients that you work with, of acknowledging those childhood traumas, but now as adults or young adults, how did you kind of heal from that? Or what are some of the things that you teach that could help those who are still struggling with some of those things to begin to heal from their childhood traumas?
Well, the first thing is to really acknowledge that they're there and
Mhm.
understand that they followed you into adulthood, because some people don't even know that is their normal, the way they live. But
Mhm.
certain things, like when you look at, they call them ACOAs, so adult children of alcoholics. When you look at them, there's like, they call it the laundry list, and it's like 13 traits that they're going to have, regardless, almost 100% deniably. If they don't get help, this is how they're going to end up as an adult. And some of those are like people pleasing, and being afraid of authority, and just insecurity in general, and a lack of self-esteem and things like that. So, and also acting like a child, something that, because for the people out there listening, and I don't know, your listeners, I don't know exactly where your group is, but I truly believe in something that's called deal to heal. They're all people that
Mhm.
have gone through
Yeah.
something. So they're out there and they're wanting to heal, they're wanting to feel better. And I always say, just start being aware. Like, sit down and really just sit with yourself and think about the person that, if everything else was erased, who would you be? Like, what kind of person would you want to be? And I picture like my best moment. And this is a good exercise for people to kind of figure out who they are, because a lot of people don't
Mhm.
even know who they are at this point.
Right.
I know it's crazy, but you really have to gain back a sense of your own identity when you
Yeah.
start to heal, because again, you've been told what to think, what to say, what to do, who to be your entire life, or you've done it out of safety, or you've
Mhm.
done it out of just a need for validation. But so I tell people, picture your very first, your best place you could possibly be, your best scenario. What are you doing? And then think about all of the people and all of the things that kind of surround that moment. So it could be on the beach with your friends. And then
Mhm.
picture those people. Like, are they funny? Are they kind? Are they friendly? Do they lie? I mean, does that make you happy? Think about the best in everything in that moment and write it down. I mean, this is a good exercise for people. And then think about a bad situation, and you don't have to bring up any horrible memories or anything, but just something that would be considered a really bad time. And then look at the characteristics and the details of what's around there. Like, what are the people like? How are they acting? What is the situation? Is it dark? Is it dreary? And you kind of can start to, when you do that and write these things down, you can kind of start to build your identity, what you want to be if you were that beautiful, divine, joyous, perfect creature that you were born.
Mhm.
And then when you start to act something that is not in alignment with that, you'll start to notice it. So if you find yourself lying when you don't need to lie, question it. Just be like, why did you do that? And then my best, and just start to, when you snap at somebody and wow, that's not me. I'm not a snappy person. I'm not mean. I'm not condescending. I'm not rude. Why did I act like that? Start to really be aware of those things, because then you can kind of follow them back, and you can see when you're acting out of alignment with who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Because 9 times out of 10, you're not acting from your present moment and your present state. You're acting from the wounded child inside of you. That's like the 5-year-old having a temper tantrum, I like to say.
Right.
When I snap at my husband because it's something I want that he doesn't think I should have, it's like literally like the 5-year-old me not getting what I want and stomping my feet because I never get what I want. And now I'm like, I'm 56. I deserve to get what I want. So it's literally the wounded child acting out. So you have to start to be aware is the first step.
And I agree with that, because that's also like the first step when I talk about deal, heal, fulfill. Inside of the deal, we're dealing with it. It's the first thing is acknowledging it, and being aware of what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you're going through. So I definitely agree with that, because you can't begin to heal it if you don't address it in the first place. And also one of the things you said, and it's about to skip my mind. Um, you were talking about addressing it. Oh, I know what it was. The journey of really getting to know yourself, right? Especially when you come in from a space that could be considered toxic, or any space of healing. When you're beginning to take this journey, this healing journey, there is a space that you have to get to know who you are now, because any kind of pain changes us. It begins to mold us and affects us differently. And so after especially any kind of major, hurt or pain, you have to kind of acknowledge or kind of reassess who you are now, because you've been changed a little bit. And I talk about, dealing with the death of my mom and my mother-in-law at the time, around the same time, losing both of them, and how that sent me into a deep depression, and even dealing with suicidal ideations and all of that. Coming out of that, getting on the other side of that, once I made it through that season, it still was really like just the beginning of this journey of me. Okay, who am I now? Who am I as this motherless child, should I say now, a motherless adult child, who
Mhm.
still longs for my mom and for the relationship that I had with my mother-in-law, because we were really close. But having to go through that journey of, okay, who am I, and really looking deep within and going through a season of personal development, and beginning to even begin to develop in myself. Okay, how can I make myself better? What things can I study? And then again, going into those things, those spaces of you that you probably never acknowledged, like what actually makes me happy, and
Mhm.
I'm on a journey now. I started hiking last year, right? I started hiking, and I realized just how much I really loved it. And it just got me into a space of, what would my life look like if I enjoyed every area of my life the way I'm enjoying this experience, right? And so now I'm in this space. It's like I'm really just like really addressing each area of my life. It's like, okay, what adjustments do I need to make to have this part of my life be enjoyable no matter what? Like, as soon if I go, if it's church, what adjustments do I need to make so that every time I go to church, it's a enjoyable experience? And really just kind of finding those spaces and making those adjustments, I think is, at least on this journey that I'm on, it's just like an amazing thing.
And sometimes it's just finding, being grateful for what you can find in that experience.
Mhm.
I mean, you can be grateful for anything. And some people are
Right.
like, how are you grateful for anything? And I'm like, because if you are standing here right now, you've survived.
Yes.
So now it's only up from here. So you can, I practice gratitude every morning before I get out of bed. I say 5 things. It might just be, thank you for my feet not hurting because I work at
Mhm.
night.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. But if someone cuts me off, literally, I don't flip them the bird. The first thing I think is, man, I'm glad I'm not in such a hurry. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's not, and then like you said, it makes every moment more enjoyable. You're not always
Yeah.
constantly just looking for the bad stuff, because a lot of us that grew up with a lot of bad things happen, that is their second nature, is to look
Mhm.
for the bad stuff and to catastrophize all the bad stuff. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
just give you a short story, like quick story. I actually on this last Monday had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it was very super scary, but it taught a lot about how far I've come in the last 15 years, because my self-talk was not what it would have been 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, immediately was like, wow, this is divine intervention, because I got to the hospital. I was literally at the doctor's office when I had the stroke. I got to the emergency room. I got the clot breaker, and I walked out of there 5 days later.
Mm.
So it's like, but even in that thinking, while that whole thing was going on, it was all positive.
Yeah.
It wasn't feeling sorry for myself. It wasn't going in. None of that ever crossed my mind. And that's muscle memory. Having a positive attitude like that and being grateful for things when they seem horrific, you have to practice that. That is not
Mhm.
something that comes naturally to a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah, it's not, and I learned not recently, but I would say within the last year or so, about this thing that's called the law of polarity. And what that simply says is there's nothing that's all good and there's nothing that's all bad, but in everything there's good and bad. So
Mm-hmm.
even your happiest moments have some bad parts attached to it, and some of your saddest moments have some good things attached to it. And so, for example, we talk about people that win the lottery. It's like, yeah, that would be great to have all this money and no more financial worries. But then all money is an amplifier, so it's going to amplify whatever it is that you have going on in here. So if you had any kind of addictions, it's just going to amplify them bigger now. At one time you might be only could afford one beer, but now you can afford a whole cellar. You know what I mean? So now it's going to amplify it, to the bad side. And so even though the financial blessing that you may have gained, that might be good, but the ramifications of now the things that it gives you access to, that an undisciplined person couldn't control yourself, and now you get people that's end up on all kinds of drugs and things of that nature, because it just amplified the things that they were dealing with. And then you take something bad like the death of a loved one, which is can be looked at as one of the worst things that can happen, to lose a loved one. But a lot of times in losing, especially like a matriarch of a family, it brings the rest of the family together. You know what I mean? And so, yes, the losing that person could be looked at as a bad thing, but in that bad thing, it allowed this good thing to happen, which brings the family back together and strengthen the family bond. And so, yes, that law of polarity, once you can accept that there's good and bad in everything, and always look for the good, which is definitely a, a learned behavior or taught behavior, however you want it, because we're not naturally born to look for the good. We always look for the bad. So
Well, and
when we
that's
get to the
yeah.
space, yeah, when we get to the space where we can make a decision, like I'm always going to look for what I have to be grateful for in every opportunity, then it definitely changes the outcomes.
Hmm. And especially when you're one of those people that has gone through a lot of trauma, you tend to be very hard on yourself. So
Mm,
you automatically look for the bad. But it goes down to really, it's like I was telling someone today, it goes down to choice. It goes down to
yeah.
you putting your law of polarity with the law of what you think about, you bring about, or where your energy goes, energy flows. The
Yep.
two together are very serious, because you have one, you have a situation. You can look at the bad, you can look at the good. Whatever you focus on is where the energy is going to go. I mean, we're all
Mhm.
energy, everything is energy.
Yeah.
So you have to make that conscious choice. You have to. And sometimes it's hard. I remember when I started a gratitude challenge I did like a little 4-day challenge with people online. And the first day I had someone reach out to me and they said, I have nothing to be grateful for. I said, did you wake up? Where'd you wake up? And she was like, in my bed. Then be grateful you have a bed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, and you may have to start small, because, and I've had people say to me, well, I don't have a bed. I'm sleeping in the streets. but you had a blanket. Like,
Right.
you woke up, and that is number
Right.
one. Sometimes it might be as small as, thank you for letting me have another day. I'm grateful I'm here,
Yeah.
because it beats the alternative. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I was having a I'm glad you say I was having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and I mentioned to her that I'm going to be 49 this year, and she was like 49. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting older. I said, but it beats the other, it beats the alternative, right?
Mhm.
I said, time is going fast, but I don't want it to stop because once it stop, I really got problems, you know.
It's funny because I work a job at a restaurant, so part-time, and I'm one of the oldest people there. I mean, I'm 56 and I'm serving, which I love. I enjoy doing it. But they're always like, "Oh yeah," they call me like mom and stuff like that. But I'm like, guys, you have no idea. I have so much more wisdom than you. It's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
I'm like, so I don't look at myself as old. I'm like, I'm just more fulfilled with wisdom than you. That's what it's
right.
about. Like, and age is just a number anyway. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Like you said, making that choice to be able to look at the good things, and I think it's important, like you mentioned, that even when we start looking for the things to be grateful for, that we start with the smallest things. And I think when we start looking so big, like what do I have to be grateful for, and we're looking for this big amazing thing, we miss so many small things that add up to the amazing things. And like you said, just the number one, you woke up. That means anything that happened yesterday, anything happened in your past, you woke up to another day to change the future. You have the opportunity to change your future. So even if you woke up and you didn't wake up in the bed, you woke up under a blanket, but you woke up. So that means you have the day to make some adjustments so that maybe tomorrow when you wake up, you will wake up in the bed. And so I think though, when we are able to look at those small things and appreciate those small things, then we'll even recognize how each of those little things add up to big things.
And yes, absolutely. And I saw you on one of your shirts and I really liked it. And I don't remember what the quote was, but you said something about, and it said like, you got to do the work. And I wanted to point
Mhm.
that out. I
Yeah,
don't remember I was reading through
yeah.
as your
It said, "Don't wish work." That's one of my
don't wish
favorite
work.
shirts that I designed.
And
Yeah,
I like that. And I always, I go back to that too for the listeners that are like, okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to be more positive. I'm going to be this, especially things like gratitude, things like the big concepts of being grateful. Feel it in your body. Don't just write it down and put it away. Don't just say it to say it. Sit there until you can feel it, because that is where the shifts come. Because it's
yeah,
easy for me to go, oh, I'm grateful I have a dog, and I'm grateful my grandmother's still alive, and I'm grateful. But if I'm not feeling it in my heart, it's not making the shift up here that it needs to
right.
make.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and it
So
might take
let's
time.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, even when we're able to look at those things to be grateful for in our lives. One of the biggest things in our lives is the relationships that we're in, whether it be family, friends, or whatever. But especially when you grow up with different things happening to you, you've lived through some bad experiences. Sometimes you fall into some toxic relationships that are not that good for you. So how can we begin to even spot those relationships before we get too wrapped up in them? Like if we can able to start spotting the different characteristics of a bad relationship or a toxic relationship early, before we get too wrapped up in it and be like, oh man, I can't get out.
Yeah. My biggest tip on this one is, first of all, get to know yourself.
Hmm.
Because if you know yourself and you respect yourself and you love yourself, when something feels wrong, use your gut instinct. They call it a gut instinct for a reason. If
Yeah.
somebody says something to you, or you see something, and you get that little, I call it the gut punch, and you have that feeling, listen to your intuition first of all, because you're probably right.
Hmm. Yeah.
So just listen to that. Get to, if somebody says something rude on your first date, and be like, whoa. And you're like, whoa, that wasn't very nice. Well, that wasn't very nice. And that is that person. Because I always tell people, especially when you're getting in a new relationship, that person is on their absolute best behavior.
Yeah.
So if you're getting an icky feeling right from the beginning, then you're going to get way ickier feelings when you've been with them. But the next most important thing is like, as you're seeing these things and you're seeing, like people, when you grow up like that, it's what you know. Sometimes these toxic relationships are what you know. And your brain likes familiarity. Your
Right.
brain is there to protect you and keep you safe, but it also likes familiar. So while you might think, okay, I get that guy. I mean, it's our first date and he's falling over drunk. Your instinct is automatically going to be like, take care of him. What you're used to is going to be take
Mhm.
care of him, bring him home. It's okay. I helped my dad. That's, and all this stuff
Yeah.
comes flooding back because that's what you know how to deal with. And it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, I guess,
Right.
like that's what you're used to. What you need to do again is know yourself, know what you really want, and then be able to set boundaries. Remember when I had that conversation about all the good characteristics and stuff?
Mhm.
Those are your values. Those are your core values of the people that you want in your life. And you need to know, like, if you don't want dishonest people in your life, the first time you catch someone in a lie, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not negotiable. That is not an honest man, and that is not who I want to be with for the rest of my life. Now, of course, I'm not going to say like, bam, go out, dump your husbands, like leave them. That's not what I'm saying. but but if you know that those 10 core values and they're violating them right in the beginning, set your boundaries and just say no.
Yeah.
It's much easier to deal with the heartache of someone you've been with for a week than it is to deal with the heartache of someone you've been with for 20 years
Yeah. Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
finally decide you can't take it anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's always a journey. I want to switch things up a little bit. So I'm looking at your title under your name, and it says the founder of the Teen Thriving Now. Tell us a little bit about that, because that definitely sounds interesting.
so that is the name of my company, and it's actually funny that right now I'm not doing a lot of work with teens, but that was my goal, and that's how I kind of got started into this whole coaching thing anyway, is I wanted to be a speaker for schools
Hmm.
because I was a teacher and I watched all of those children with those same sad, hollow eyes that I can only imagine I had. And so when I was teaching, I always went at it with the giving the kids the benefit of the doubt and assuming that kids, there's teachers, I've heard them say, oh, I hate these kids. They don't want to learn. There's no kid on the planet that doesn't want to learn. If they're not learning, it's because something else is distracting them and keeping them
Hmm.
from learning. So I want to continue. That's the name of my company. And I've had all these things in the works and I just keep getting snagged back into the coaching, which I love. But like, I really would love to speak for and talk to and advocate for teens. So I do a lot of speaking with parents on how to help their teens and just with resilience and adversity. And just, I mean, they got it tough. I wouldn't want to be a kid now. I mean, I didn't want to be a kid 40 years ago, but 50 years ago. Sorry. But I mean, I would not want to be a child in this world because parents are struggling, teachers are struggling, everybody seems to be struggling, and they need all the help they can get. So it's like my big mission. I will speak. I do a lot of speaking for groups of parents and teens, and I just try to help empower them because as we all know, sometimes the people that we should be able to count on the most for our stability and our support and our love and our caring are the people that are doing us wrong.
Yeah.
So I want teens to understand that, I don't care. Everybody has a higher power. I don't care if it's God or the Buddha or the goddess or the universe or the rock in your front step. Everybody should at some point believe that it's bigger than them, that they can't handle everything,
Hmm.
and know that between whatever that higher power is and whatever's right there and that they were born with in their heart is really all they need. The rest is choice and tools.
Right.
So I
Good. 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 I want to talk about two things, because you mentioned about you definitely working your hardest working with teens, even though you don't do it as much as you would like to. That's my heart too. Being a speaker now, my goal is to press more into schools and to have more speaking engagements with working with students and being able to speak in the schools. But also, you're an author, and you
Yes.
also have a is it an online course?
I have online courses. I have a podcast. I have an online course. I have a whole series I'm actually getting ready to start with a bundle of 50 courses I'm creating right now.
Wow. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit more about that. Let's start with the book. Tell us about the book.
So the book is called Surviving Alcoholic Parents. And I laugh because I was talking to you before we started here, and it is actually banned on Amazon because for some reason AI picked up the title and the picture on the front and said I was condoning child abuse. It is literally the biggest crock of poo-poo I've ever seen. But you can't argue with Amazon. They're not a person. They're just a computer.
Yeah.
But it's an A to Z guide, literally A to Z, because I wanted it to be user friendly for children, and it explains all of the things as growing up with alcoholic parents. So you might open to B, and it might explain blackout drunk, because some parents, I didn't know that when my mom said something to me, and then I questioned her the next morning and she called me a liar and told me I was crazy, that she actually didn't remember talking about that. And then you might get to E, which would talk about empathy. And then, how you can, if you have a relationship with a parent and they are an alcoholic, that sometimes just trying to understand and see where they're coming from makes the relationship a little easier. It doesn't fix it, but it, at least if you can come at, so it teaches about empathy and compassion. Then you get all the way to Z, and it talks about Zen, about how you need that safe space. You need that quiet space for yourself. And sometimes just taking a deep breath, slowing down can get you out of a space. It talks about anxiety. So everything is literally a letter. So
Yeah.
very easy to write and very easy to read. But I did it so that, because I have parents that read it that say, I wish I had had this when I was 12 all the time. I wish I did. I wish someone had explained to me Al-Anon and Alateen and alcoholism in general, addiction, and the fact that it's a disease. And like, nobody told anybody anything. And so as a child growing up like that, you grow up lost and confused and angry. Where if somebody could have just told me when I was 10 that mommy was sick and that she didn't understand what she was doing, my whole life might have been different.
Yeah.
But they didn't. She was just a crazy drunk. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so it's the book I wish I had. And you can't get it on Amazon because Amazon banned me. I think
Right.
it's on Barnes and Nobles, but I just have stacks. I have like 300 of them at my house, and I just mail them out. So you can go to my website, which is just my name. That's super easy, TammyVincent.com, and you can order one if you want. Or you can get the Kindle version for 99 cents. So, I don't know if it's still on Kindle. Yeah, it is. I still have it there. So, but that's my book. And it was fun to write. It was very healing to write. It brought up a lot of memories. You'll find that in your healing journeys, everybody out there listening, that you get the memories as you're ready to deal with them, and not before. Not before.
And I just want to speak on one of the things that you said about, being able to empathize with your parent. And it doesn't make it right, but you're able to kind of understand a little more. And I remember doing an interview on a podcast called the Untapped Keg, and the host, I would say, is a former alcoholic. I know they've referred to themselves as different things, but I don't have to be correct because I'm not. This is not my podcast. But he's a former alcoholic. But I remember us having the conversation, and the conversation was about my dad, and really me just kind of giving a child's viewpoint of what he was dealing with during my childhood. And I remember really never really processing it as much as I was processing in that interview, and really began to think back on, some of the things I mentioned about, losing your house and losing your job and losing your best friend, who's been your best friend your whole life, and not just losing him, but for him to be murdered, and, that whole thing. And in the midst of that podcast, and me, sharing the story of my dad from my viewpoint, and I said several times in the interview, like, this is how I remember it and how I see it. So it's not his words, it's kind of mine, but it really allowed me again to empathize and really be like, man, I understand why he was going through so much, especially as being an adult now with your own kids, and realizing how volatile life can be with, you're up one day, you're making money with a good job, but then now the job is no more. Because I've been through that where they just shut the whole company down. It's like it's nothing you did. You're like they just decided to shut it all down, and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And still having a family and having children, a wife and kids that you have to care for, and just really, again, that interview allowed me to really empathize with my dad, with all the things that he was going through, and then going back to being grateful that he made it through all of that and still with us now. I mentioned, losing my mom, but my dad's still here and, healthy and, still kicking, and I'm grateful for that. But that just going through those thoughts and going through the interview really helped me to empathize with, his journey. So,
well, and that's why we do what we do, Ernest, because every time you tell your story, you heal a little more, whether you know it or not.
yeah.
And I bet you the people watching that podcast heard that and probably witnessed you with that realization. And how many people do you think had that same realization right then and there?
Yeah.
Kudos to you. That gives me goosebumps.
Thank you. So let's talk about these courses. You said 50 courses at one time?
50, yes. So I did a summit and I had 45 speakers in it. And I'll make this a quick version. And in the 45 speakers, it had like 10 different topics. And they were talking about something. And one girl said something really made me cringe because I didn't see it that way. And I thought, that's not. And then I thought to myself, Tammy, that's kind of judgmental. Like everybody sees things from different perspectives. Like I might say something to you and you might take it a totally different way. But we all of us healers, no matter what world we're in, we all have the same ideas. It's the same universal struggles. It's the same stuff we're going through. We all have just different ways of talking about it. So what I came up with was a series. It's called the Collective Wisdom Healing Series. And it's 50 different courses on all kinds of stuff. And I'm spearheading the whole project. So it'll be my little part in it. But I want to have contributors that put in books and PDFs and guides and anything they use to help them. And also people to write actual courses. I want coaches and therapists and doctors to do little mini courses so people can get different perspectives on these same universal problems. And I'm super excited. I just, it really came to me when I was doing that summit in December. So I've got it going. I've got all 50 courses mapped out. I've got 18 contributors so far. I need 250 contributors. So yeah, need lots. but I just think it's going to be amazing because I have clients that I literally will say something to them 10 times and they don't get it. So I will get on a podcast, bring a guest on a podcast and I'll egg them on so that they say it. And then I'll send that podcast to my client. She's like, wow, yeah, that's what you were trying to tell me. And I want to go, the thing, like I literally want to bang my head against the wall, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care how they get the information. I don't care how I get it to them. I just want to help them.
Yeah. And we have that problem a lot of times with our children, right? And I talk to a lot of parents and they're like, I'm trying to tell them this and they're not listening. I said, do yourself a favor. Stop telling them, call one of your friends and tell your friends to tell them. It's that simple. It's like, you ain't got to stress out. Sometimes they get so used to hearing our voice over their whole lives saying, don't do this, do that, don't do that, that they kind of zone out, to our voices. And sometimes they just need a new voice to listen to. And so if you got a good friend that you can call and say, hey, look, my kid is struggling with this. They're not listening to me. I just need you to tell them the same things that I'm saying, and they'll hear it. And it's like magic, it's like a new voice. It's like, oh, really? That's what it is? And you think to yourself, like, I just told you that yesterday. You know what I mean?
And again, you want to just be like, whoa, what is wrong with you? But at the same time, I don't care. I don't care how you get it, as long as you get it.
Yes, amazing.
So
amazing.
I'm super excited about it. Like I'm already looking at you going, I wonder what you could put in there. I just think there's billions of people on this planet and there's so many different ways of looking at things. And what resonates with people may look at me and go, I don't like her.
Yeah.
But I got 9 other people in that course that they might like. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, and that's how it is. And it's just like a therapist, you're looking for the right fit. It's like, yeah, there's like hundreds and thousands of therapists, but you got to find the one that you connect with, that you feel comfortable with, and that you believe that can help you. And it's the same way with anything that we do. Whether you talk about mentors or coaches or pastors or whatever, it's like, okay, who resonates with me the most? Who do I feel that connection with the most? And it could be the same information, but we just have an ear for how we interpret things and how we
Mhm.
receive information. And so you have to find the person that can give us the information in a way that we can receive it. And
Yep.
that's what matters in the end.
Or it could even be like literally just timing. You might hear
Mhm.
it the second time and if you only had one little module of me talking, you're not going to hear the second time. So
Yeah.
I was like, "No, I'm going to find a way." And that was what came to me. I think I was in the shower. I think it came to me
Yeah.
in the shower. I do my best thinking in the shower.
Yeah. It's the running water. It does miracles.
I think so.
I
So,
love it. I love it. So, last thing, we're talking about the courses, and you mentioned before we got on about being able to offer the listeners a code or something of that nature.
yes, actually, I do have a course that I like it. It's a self-guided course, but you can jump on for all the support you need throughout the course. It's called Trials to Triumph.
Mm.
And it's set up to be an 8-week course. You can take your time as much as you want. But if you go, probably the best, are you going to put my links in show notes or
Yeah.
do you? Okay.
Yeah. You
So
can you
probably,
can save them for those that's listening, but yes, they
yep,
will be
I'll
in the
say it.
in the show
So
notes.
probably the easiest place to go is just to my website, which is my name, www.tammyvincent.com.
Mhm.
And then you'll look where it says Trials to Triumph course. And there's a code. Just type in there, heal for free. FOR, not the letter number 4. So just type in heal for free and you can get the course that normally sells for $197. You can get it for nothing. If you don't want to go to my website, go to the podcast. I have it in every show notes of every episode I do. And my podcast is called Adult Child of Dysfunction.
Yes. So I was going to say that because that's one thing we didn't talk about before we get out of here. Tell us about the podcast.
So the podcast is it's called Adult Child of Dysfunction, Thriving After Chaos. And it's all kinds of different stories. It's and every single one, I keep it a teaching podcast. So it's all hope and healing stories. But I have
Mhm.
therapists, I have people that have gone through traumatic things. I have one guy that was but everybody has found their purpose after their trials, and that's what I like about it. Is I had one guy that was shot in a drive-by shooting and was almost died, but now he coaches people with disabilities. I just I mean, I'm on episode I think 141, but I love it. But yeah, go there. I have all the show notes. Every single guest pretty much that's on there gives away something free. So it might be a downloadable PDF or a course or a book or something. I try to get them to give something just to add more value. But
Yeah.
it's super fun. And if you're out there listening and you think you got a great story, I'd love to have you come on and be a guest as well. Love it. Love to have you. And the more we tell our story, the more we get heard, the more we heal. And not only that, but the more people out there that don't have it, aren't quite ready to tell their story.
Yeah.
Every time they hear someone else tell their story, they believe they're not alone just a little bit more. And
Yes. I
eventually they
love
will.
it. I love it. I love it. Tammy, I want to thank you so much for being on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story, your expertise. I want you to have the last word, and I want you to leave us with your social media handles and things of that nature, and leave us with a word of advice, motivation, however you feel. Right. And so I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking me out on my website, which is dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, because my mission, just like the mission of the podcast, is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So make sure you guys are checking me out there. And also there, you can also find the booking page to have me to come in to be a speaker at your school or organization. Everything is there at the dealhealfulfill.org. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out at our ebooks at ebooks by ejames.com. Again, right now, I'm giving away the Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness, absolutely free. When you go to ebooks by ejames.com, you can get your free copy of the ebook, the Forgiving Me ebook. And while you're there, purchase another ebook, which is one of the other ebooks, whether it's the Cord for or From Males to Men, or some of the other ebooks that are also available. Again, that's at ebooks by ejames.com. Also, our inspirational t-shirt line, we talked a little bit about one of my favorite t-shirts that I have, which is a t-shirt that says don't wish, work, right? Because oftentimes we treat our dreams like they are wishes, like there's a genie that said, I wish this would happen. I wish this would happen. I wish I could do this. But sometimes you got to stop wishing and put in the work to make your dreams come true. So again, you guys can find that t-shirt as well as some of our other inspirational tees at deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com, including our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on them. So there's one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and there's also one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. So put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Again, go to deal, the number 2, healtees.com, deal2healtees.com to get your inspirational t-shirt from there. Last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And so we talk about everything surrounding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just everything surrounding forgiveness, because we believe it's a very important conversation for us to be able to release the things that we are holding on to, that we carry as a burden. So you can sign up for that free virtual workshop at forgivenessmission.com, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop, sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission. And those are absolutely free. Whenever you're listening to this, either one just ended or one is coming up. Again, that's forgivenessmission.com for our free virtual workshops. Make sure that you guys go to forgivenessmission.com and sign up for the free workshop. All right. So again, Miss Tammy, thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for sharing your story. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody out there for listening. I totally enjoyed this. So if you want to come find out where I am, just go to my website, tammyvincent.com, or my podcast, Adult Child of Dysfunction. But I want to leave you with this. Okay. So we were all born, and I think I mentioned this beautiful, divine, happy, joyous creature. And then life happened. And we put on these goggles, and it changed the lens and the way we look at the world. We have it in you. You have it in you to be that person that you were born, that joyous, divine, amazing creature. Don't stop. If you're on these podcasts and you're listening to this, it means you're curious. It means you want more, and it means you want something better and have more happiness. Do whatever you have to do, one step at a time. There's no time limit for healing. It can take a day. It can take a decade. It doesn't matter. Every step that you walk forward is one step closer to complete and utter joy, and you deserve it. You are so worthy. So before you go to bed every night, I want you to say that to yourself. I am loved. I am worthy. I am way more than enough.
And we can't end it no better than that. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Tees. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. Let's go to deal2healtees.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.